Hello Year 10 and welcome to your next lessons on urban issues and challenges. Now we are coming towards the end of this topic and we're halfway through looking at our second case study at Newcastle. So just a quick recap about what we've done so far. We started off looking at urbanisation and megacities, and then we moved on to our first case study of Rio de Janeiro, which is what we did for all of these lessons before Christmas. Then we moved on to look at urban change in the UK, and then we focused on our second case study, Newcastle. So we looked at all the opportunities that Newcastle have faced, and now we're starting to look at the challenges. So last week we looked at the dereliction rates, we looked at deindustrialisation, and we focused on social and economic challenges, and in this lesson we're looking at environmental challenges. Okay, so in today's lesson, we're looking at dereliction, building on brownfield and greenfield sites, waste disposal, air pollution, and the impact of urban sprawl onto the rural-urban fringe. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail as we go through the tasks. Now, the purpose of this video is to go through the tasks in a little bit more detail. So you might not watch all of the video at once. You may watch the video for task 1, and then pause the video and complete the tasks either on the PDF or the Word document. And then when you've finished task 1, you might want to start rewatching the video for task 2, and then so on and so forth. So you kind of do the tasks and the video side by side. So, task 1 then. Well, we are going to be using these lessons throughout this lesson. Sorry, we're going to be using these keywords throughout this lesson, and therefore we need to know what they mean. And they're all new apart from maybe one: pollution and urban sprawl. So what is urban sprawl? Well, urban sprawl is when the city, so the urban areas, get too busy. There's not any space left for people to build more houses, so it means that there's unplanned growth. So imagine if this was the urban city. So this was the urban area known as the CBD, and this bit was the rural area. If they run out of space in the city, they will start to build in the rural areas, and that's known as urban sprawl. Okay, so the next one then is a brownfield site. Now when you look at the colour brown, you think of mud, you might think of an area that's already been used before, and you would be correct. A brownfield site is an area that has already been used before, and they're normally found in the inner city. It might have been used as farmland, it might have been used as an old factory, and they basically demolish anything that's on that land to rebuild something new. So it could be that they demolish a factory to make way for some more housing. A greenfield site is a little bit different then. So if you look out of your house and you have any fields that have nothing on them, maybe a few grazing cattle, that would be classed as land that has not been developed previously. So nothing has been built on it. So that would be new land. And we're going to look at these two definitions, brownfield and greenfield site, throughout the lesson. The next one is pollution then, and pollution is a term we've used significantly and a lot throughout of our geography years, and it's relating to chemical, noise or dirt, which is harmful for the environment. A green belt then is open land consisting of farmland, woodland areas and open spaces surrounding urban areas. Okay. And generally green belts are protected, so people and governments don't like to build on green belts because they like to have an element of open green space that people can escape to, you know, especially during the time that we're going through now. It's nice to have an area that we can go to and get away from that city life. And then we have waste disposal. So how do we get rid of waste adequately? It could be business waste, it could be residential waste, so waste from your homes, without creating pollution or taking up more space through landfill. Okay, so now we're going to move on to look at task 2. Task 2 then, we're going to be focusing on the environmental challenges in this lesson. And when we think about environmental challenges that Newcastle face, there's 4. We're talking about derelict land, so land that's been abandoned. We're talking about waste disposal. So how do we get rid of our waste? Does it go into landfill? Does it get recycled? What happens to it? Then we're looking at air pollution. So we can get air pollution from a significant amount of things. It might be through an increase in transport. It might be through like noise pollution, so from cars. And it could be that we have cut down trees to make way for more houses, which means there's less trees to take in that carbon dioxide. So that's going to mean there's more pollution in the atmosphere. And then urban sprawl we've already looked at. It's when there's an increase in the urban areas. So they start to build houses in the rural fringe or the urban fringe because there's no space left in the urban areas. So what you need to do is you need to read through the statements on your sheet and decide which category you think they fall within, and then decide who you think these are a problem for. So are they a problem for businesses, local people, tourists, homeowners, or ecosystems? So let's do a couple together. Okay. So, first one, it is unsightly, it doesn't look nice, it may spoil the reputation of the place. So, it could be any of those things, but if it doesn't look nice, it's going to be more of a visual thing, so it might be something that's been abandoned, so it might be an abandoned factory, which would fall under derelict land. Now, that's going to be a problem for people that live there, so the homeowners of that area. It can also be a problem for people that want to set up a new business there. They might not want to set up a new shop there or a cafe or build more houses there because that abandoned factory is quite ugly to look at, so that might deter people from wanting to live there. The next one then, let's find another one. This causes lots of issues for these areas, including increased traffic and loss of green space. So what's going to increase traffic? Maybe more people living there. What's going to remove green space? Well, the only reason you might need to cut down trees is to build more houses. So this one, I think, is talking about urban sprawl. And that's going to be a problem for the people that lived there before. So previous homeowners are going to be not very happy about this. And environmentalists that care about ecosystems and the environment, they're not going to be happy either. Okay, now this one here is just giving us an example of urban sprawl. So areas of Newcastle, such as the Great Park, is at risk of urban sprawl. So we've had over 2,000 houses have been built there to home over 5,000 people. And the reason that they've built those houses there is so that there's more houses for people that still work or go to school in the city, and this is an example of urban sprawl. So you need to go through the statements, decide which factor you think they're referring to, and then decide who you think it's a problem for. Once you've done that, I would go through, so this is still part of task 2, and number them. So which of these is the worst challenge? So generally, I think the worst challenge in Newcastle is urban sprawl, so that would be my number 1. And my least worst challenge would be waste disposal, so that would be number 4. But there's no right or wrong answer for this. Now, you'll notice that I haven't included task 3, and task 3 is a task where you have to click on a link and it takes you to a website about Newcastle, and you have to answer the question. So we're not going to go through that together, that's what you can do independently. Now, the final task is looking at these questions. What is a greenfield and what is a brownfield site? So we already know the definitions of these two from task 1. And you'll notice here that we have got the advantages of both. So if there's no space left in a city, so imagine that this is our city. So this is the city. If there's no space left in this city and we need to build more houses, if this area was all like a brownfield site and all this area was a greenfield site, so this is greenfield and this is brownfield, the government and the council need to think about where should these houses be built, and they need to look at the benefits of both. So all you need to do for this is read through the advantages of both and then decide which would you build on if you had the choice. Would you build on the greenfield site or would you build on the brownfield site? So let's go through some of the examples together. Number 1, there is no need to clean up the site from previous land uses, therefore work can be cheaper. So if you don't have to knock down an old building or you don't have to remove any like waste pipes or electricity, it's going to be much cheaper to start the work, and you can also start faster, so they can start building straight away. Existing road networks are not in place. That won't restrict the planning, so you don't have to think about, well, you know, they need to be close to this road, so we're going to have to, or there's a bypass, so we can't build high houses there. So there's a benefit that it doesn't restrict planning, but it's also a negative because then they'll also have to add in these roads. So I would say that was actually a downfall of building on a greenfield site. Let's look down then at number 5, there's more space available for gardens. So if that site is not being built on before, then it's going to be generally quite lush green grass. So it means that the gardens in these houses are going to look generally nicer. There's more space for greenfield sites and more space for open plan sites and fields. So you might be able to make your houses more expensive as a result. So let's look at the brownfield sites then. Well, number 1, it's more sustainable as existing developed land is being used. So instead of going on to brand new land, they're using land that's being used for something else. So not only do they remove those derelict buildings, but then they're also reusing that land for something else. So it's essentially like what we're told to do: reuse, recycle, reduce, instead of buying something new. So instead of buying plastic bottles every single day, buy a plastic bottle that you can reuse. Now that's an example on a very small scale. So what are the other advantages of building on a brownfield site? So let's look at number 3. The road networks already exist, which they don't in a greenfield site. And so do electricity and gas networks, which means that it will be cheaper to sort out the electricity and the gas and the water access for these areas. Now, if you live near an area where there's been houses being built, you'll notice that they have to dig up the roads, they have to dig up a lot of the space, and that is to build in these water networks. And you know, it takes a lot of time. The people nearby become very unhappy because it's making their place look ugly. It adds a lot of time to their journeys because they're having to sit at traffic lights because there's builders on the roads. Whereas in brownfield sites, they don't have that problem. Now, the also benefit of a brownfield site is that they're closer to the city, because if it was an area where there was a factory before, that would be in the city. So it means that it's a faster commute for people that live in the city or work in the city, or go to school in the city. However, because you're closer to the city, it means then that the prices might be more expensive. So there's benefits and negatives to each. So once you've read through them, you need to decide which you think is better. Now, once you've completed tasks 1 to 4, you will notice that there is an assignment where you should submit all of your work from this week. And then you need to keep hold of your notes, because in your lesson on either Thursday or Friday, you will be completing an assessment which has a variety of shorter questions and longer questions which relate to the work from this week. If you have any questions about the work, please make sure you send me a message on It's Learning, and I hope you find this video helpful.